Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Synergia, a cyberpunk Yuri love story mixed with a cop thriller. Is Synergia worth its short, neon-filled playthrough? Let's find out. Synergia is a cyberpunk visual novel with an emphasis on both its world building and romance. Kind of. You play as Sela, a specialist cop that's basically a Blade Runner, who is assigned to help defuse dangerous situations involving androids around their cyberpunk city. Back at home, her personal servant android basically dies, so she's given a new advanced one from her black market Yoko. This new android named Mara is so advanced she seems like a real person, all the way down to potentially violating robotic law. Sela has a lot of baggage tied with her previous relationships, as well as having a failed relationship with an android in the past, which is illegal, so her and Mara's ever-growing relationship is already pretty dangerous. What follows is a string of revelations that tie Mara, Sela, and the megacorp that controls basically everything all together, as well as a mysterious hacker that seems to be working behind the scenes, and our two core characters need to figure out if they can salvage some kind of romantic relationship out of this. It's a short visual novel, only a few hours, with two endings clearly defined as good or bad, being the only real split in the story. The story also bounces around between slice of life stuff with Mara and some of the cop stuff Sela engages with and how those two intersect. Sela also has her friends on the force who don't trust her to worry about as well. The art here is very unique, paired with a very diluted, hazy style overall that fits well with the grungy, dirty future that's associated with a lot of cyberpunk. And honestly, not a lot to say about this one. It's a short VN with a few choices about a lesbian love story between a lady and her robot android and how their connection affects the world around them. So what do I like about Synergia? Well, like I said, the art here is very unique and gels well with this game's neon aesthetic. You don't see art like this very often in visual novels, and I really enjoyed it. Additionally, the music was the highlight here for me. A lot of lo-fi cyberpunk beats that I liked enough to put in the background when I was working the next day. And lastly, it's nice to have a cyberpunk VN, with its attempting to mix Ghost in the Shell and Blade Runner, but focusing more on its love story, which conceptually is a great idea. When it comes to the bad, the overall story is really poorly paced, and is paired with some frankly mediocre writing. This author loves to tell and not show, which makes reading overall fairly tedious. It doesn't help that sentences often feel like they cut off abruptly, making reading it also feel a bit jarring, and plot elements, especially near the end, feel very rushed and overly simplistic in how they resolve. Additionally, I found almost all of the characters fell flat. They're dry to the point of uninteresting, and while that's understandable for the androids, the humans are just as bland and either don't grow at all or have their entire plot arcs spelled out for them the minute you meet them. And lastly, the interactive elements in the UI UX of this game's menus are really wonky, particularly on the Vita version, where even saving is a chore and picking correct decisions is actually hard to do because the choice you're selecting is the one that's not glowing in red and highlighted, but in fact the one that is just black. Like, what? Whose idea was this? As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And while Synergia's heart is in the right place, the story itself is kind of a massive mess. The art and particularly the music are excellent, and the core concept here could have been decent, but it's bogged down by poor pacing, mediocre writing, and a world whose potential is never fully realized. Considering how much cyberpunk content exists nowadays, there's no reason to bother with Synergia, even if it is a short read. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Have you read Synergia? I was pretty excited for this one and was definitely disappointed by how much it let me down, but I am curious what your take is on it, so please let me know in the comments. And regardless, go out there and maybe avoid Synergia.